You guys just you keep coming around. I just keep hearing about you guys.
And I might need to tell Ryan to cut that up a little bit and just put it in my audio for my phone.
First of all, I love the game. I had a passion to play the game, not only football, but I love the game of golf. And what it lends to a person and the friendships you develop on the golf course.
It's been a pleasure being on the drop. I wish you guys all the best down the road.
As someone like you have that golf itch like a lot of us do.
I keep track of you, and you are moving. You are on the move.
So listen, I'm a big New Jersey golf guy. You're very kind, Mike, and you too, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be on just a couple of Jersey boys here talking about something we love. All the best. I really enjoyed it.
This is the Drop Podcast where we talk golfing in the Garden State. I'm Mike Poro, and this is Ryan Coulott.
What's up, Drop Pod people? Welcome back to Interview Thursday. Mike, we had a special guest here. We had Brad Bardon. He is the director of tournaments for New Jersey Golf. I know you and him have talked quite extensively over the years here, and it was my first time really meeting him, so it was really cool to kind of pick his brain and really peppered him with questions. Asked about course setup, kind of the thought process on how New Jersey Golf gets their tournaments. It was really a very interesting and informative interview.
Yeah, I mean, we go through the ins and outs of everything. You're talking about course setup, where they put tees, where they put pins, how they get golf courses, where they're going in 2026. Kind of the nuts and bolts of all tournaments, New Jersey Golf related. So definitely a fun one.
Yeah, no doubt. So without further ado, we're going to throw you to that interview now with Brad Bardon. Enjoy.
All right, so today's guest is Brad Bardon, the Director of Championships for New Jersey Golf. Brad, thank you so much for coming on today's show.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Brad, as I said pre-show, it's I feel like I know you without actually ever meeting you, so it's nice to finally sit down and chat with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've obviously seen you around, certainly following Mike at the 4-ball. So next year at the 4-ball, we'll catch up some more.
Absolutely.
So Brad, let's kind of dive into a little things. And before we talk in, all the championships from 2025 and maybe even teasing next year, give the audience a little bit of a background about you, how you got into this game of golf, leading into kind of running, our state's biggest tournaments that we have here.
Yeah. Yeah. So grew up in New Jersey, from Chatham. Originally played high school golf at Chatham. My parents, I was lucky enough to grow up a Canoe Brook kid, so went through the junior golf program there. Not to date myself too much, but when I was a kid, I don't think you were even allowed on the golf course till you were 10 years old. So, I used to just hit balls and go to the practice hole a lot with my dad, and then we'd kind of sneak out and play like the 12th hole on the way back in from late in the night. So did that, 3-holer, 6-holer, 9-holer, 18-holer, interclub type stuff. Played, soccer and baseball and basketball growing up too. So just sort of all over the place sports wise. But freshman year of high school, I ended up playing baseball just because that's, kind of what I was doing. And then decided to switch over sophomore year. I went to the golf route. So I know you guys had Craig Smith on recently. He was actually, when I was a sophomore, he was the senior captain of the Chatham High School team. So he and I go way back. My older brother is good buddies with Craig. So, it's always fun to go to Morris County and visit with him again. So did that, and then played some Division III golf at St. Lawrence University, almost in Canada, all the way up in New York State. So the spring season up there was pretty miserable. But the fall season was amazing. We played at, Middlebury and Williams and Skidmore, like a bunch of those schools up in the Northeast. So did that. After college, I went first summer out. I actually got an internship at Baltusrol on the ground staff. So did basically May to October turf grass type internship working under Mark Coons. And actually Dan Kilpatrick, who you guys know quite well as well. He was the lower course superintendent then when I was there. So he and I knew each other from that. I actually have a neighbor that lives down the street now too, that actually worked there too. So kind of a weird, small circle type thing here. But So did a summer there, and then all the interns, I had graduated, and they usually, at least back then, they had 10 to 12 interns. All of them were college kids except for me, so I was like the only intern left for the fall. So they put a little more responsibility on me, which was kind of cool to kind of learn that. And then I went out west for a few years after that. Did 3 seasons of turf grass in Wyoming, in Jackson. So did that for 3 years, and then came back here. I did actually a season at Plainfield. So I was at that was 2010, which was the season leading into the first Barclays they hosted the following year. So I was at Baltusrol the year after they had the PGA in 05, and then I was at Plainfield the year before they had the big tour events. That was kind of weird, but the cool thing at Plainfield too is, I don't know if you guys know the old 18th hole, but there used to be a pond in the middle of the drive zone. So I was there and had Gil Hance. He was there before he was the big Gil that he is.
Before he was Gil.
And he was showing up in the dozer and putting the headphones on and driving, pushing earth around and stuff, and it was pretty cool. So did that at Plainfield. That was basically 5 seasons of turf grass. And then I kind of transitioned. I just I wanted to stay in golf. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do, but ended up getting a boat ride internship through the USGA here at New Jersey, and then just kind of rolled into that. So that was 2012, and I've been here ever since. So between Steve Fail and Mike hired me as an intern, and then sort of rolled it into a full-time job, and then 2018, I guess I sort of moved into the director role.
So tournaments, pretty well, seeing the back end of the PGA, the front end of the Barclays, and then coming into this, that's got to have helped with what your current role is putting on these tournaments here.
Yeah, for sure. I was never at any of those places when they were doing sort of the build out or any of that kind of stuff, but certainly at Plainfield, the prep work that we were doing, that fall, we basically redid the first sort of, the primary rough around every single hole where the rope line would be, basically scalped it all down to try to get a new rough, fresh rough. So that was something that we did all in prep for the following year's tournament. So it's pretty cool to be able to kind of be part of that lead up.
And then obviously getting into the role that you're in now, a lot of what you it just described is a lot of like turf, a lot of like on course like preparation. But then you kind of completely flip roles and say, now I'm going to like run the whole thing and not be so much kind of, let's say, on the ground maintenance, that type of style. What made you want to go the tournament director role rather than, say, a superintendent, or actually like getting your hands dirty every single day?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think part of like that first time at Baltusrol in the fall, they put me in charge of cutting cups basically every morning. And so that was a little bit of like starting to learn kind of how to set up different holes and what holes might be hard or easy, or, that sort of started to get into the mindset. And then, we hosted some, whether it was the Carter Cup for the MGA or some other events at the club. And it was sort of like seeing how you set it up for a tournament, how you set it up for that. And then I had the background of, playing college golf where, I can remember an event where I played in at against Skidmore, but I think it was the conference championships where they obviously cut a hole location in a bad spot. You've seen those videos somewhat recently. It was one of those type situations. I think one of the guys from NYU in my group, he shot like 75 or 76, and he 7 or 8 putted that one hole. And there were, too many groups had gone through it before they, realized that they couldn't use it, and it was just kind of stuck. I think I was lucky enough. My first putt settled in somebody's ball mark, so I was able to kind of tap it in close to the hole. But but one of those kind of moments were sort of like, what are these? What's somebody messed up, and who's involved? I don't even know who was involved back then. So that sort of rolled into tournament admin type thing. I started to get a little bit involved in the rules of golf, and then now I think I've worked 7 or 8 USJ championships over the last couple of years, which has been really cool to be part of those and, see sort of that, okay, we run state events. Let's go up now and see what the next level type event is. And, being on site, certainly with the USAM at Ridgewood and Arcola, they had me come in and help the days leading in and mark the whole golf course at Arcola and, prepare the local rule sheet and all that kind of stuff in the lead up of the event. So it was pretty cool to kind of do that. And then, it's just something I love being certainly on the golf course early in the morning. And, even though I'm not always getting to go out and play, but certainly being out there first thing in the morning and setting the place up is fun. So
Mike also enjoys being up at the earliest parts of the morning on the golf course. Others like to sleep a little bit, but
yeah.
Brad, you mentioned, I find this super interesting. Like, no matter whether it's, just a Wednesday at your local club or whether it's for a tournament, I always find the setup of a golf course interesting, because sometimes it looks like there's no rhyme or reason and they're just, hey, we have this rotation and just throw the pin in there, throw the tees here. When you are setting up a tournament, what kind of goes through your mind, or what's the process you go through in putting the tees in one spot, the pins in another spot? How does that relationship work? Tell us a little bit about that insight there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously first thing to consider is what's the event, the senior four ball or parent child or something like that is going to be very different approach than, the amateur at Essex County or open at Hamilton Farm or whatever that is. So that's certainly a big part of it is, sort of that prep work. A lot of our smaller events, 1-day qualifiers, all that kind of stuff, we're just going there one day, doing the setup a couple days in advance and out of there. Where, at Essex County, we went out in the spring, we took a tour of the whole golf course. We started to get some concepts of how we might want it to play, and then, come back the week before, make adjustments each morning, change a whole location here or there a little bit just to move it, whether our first spot, we didn't like, or we think we should go a little bit harder or easier. But so it's just sort of obviously figuring out first the format, as Mike can say in the four ball, certainly four ball match play, I think you can get a little more aggressive with the difficulty of the golf course because you got two shots at it. So, you're hoping that one of the two players is going to be able to make par, even if it's a little bit, the hole's tucked a little bit more or whatever it is. And then, compare that to sort of more of a net event where you've got, 10, 12, 15 handicap players that are playing in it. So, I've never really thought of the whole, we need 6 easy, 6 medium, 6 hard type setup. That's never really something I thought of because, something that is an easy hole location for me, if I hit a high cut, is different for somebody who hits a low draw, so it's like, I might think, oh, this is a really easy spot, and half the field might be like, oh, that was brutal to get to because it doesn't shape my eye, my shot shape, my eye doesn't fit. Like,
yeah.
So to me, it's more of just a balance of sort of front, back, left, right, middle, just trying to move things around. And then also, using the architecture a little bit and, trying to find spots that sort of enhance whether there's a sideboard that you can play off of or something like that, which sometimes gets a little difficult. Obviously, if the conditions don't allow and green speeds get too fast or too firm or whatever, and then there's certain hole locations that you lose. But so I mean that's just sort of a general philosophy, I guess. And then certainly with tee stuff, like it's very rare that we play a golf course all the way back at any given event. We're going to use back tees on every hole at least once, but I don't necessarily just like the concept of, okay, if you're playing the 460 yard hole and you're playing it 3 days in a row and you know exactly what to hit, like why don't we move it up to 440 one day and you can challenge a bunker or lay back or, whatever that is, just to give a little bit of, an option for a player. We did that certainly at Essex County and Hamilton Farm are good examples that, instead of just playing the same, that 13th hole at 460 yards, we moved it up to 410, 430, and 460 each day. So it was just a very different setup.
Yeah, bringing some strategy to the game, some thinking, and don't just bomb and gouge the course.
Right, and if moving the tee up means that half the field doesn't hit driver because they have to lay back from a bunker or something, then that's fine. Just some guys want to take on the extra risk, they can, and others have that option to play something different.
Golfers, the wait is over. Weequahic Golf Course is back. After a 5-year renovation across all 3 Essex County tracks, the trilogy is complete. And guess what? They saved the best for last. Weequahic is the first public golf course in the Garden State, opening over 110 years ago. This golden age design just got a modern revival. Architects Stephen Kay and Kevin Wager have enhanced the original Vescu mounding, pop bunkers, and classic greens, delivering a strategic test that's as mental as it is physical. It's golf like you've never seen. Vintage architecture set against an urban backdrop, with planes soaring from Newark Liberty International Airport, views of the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, and even glimpses of One World Trade. Weequahic is truly one of a kind. Modern turf with old school soul. You'll feel the ghost of the game walking with you, asking where the hickory shafts went. Weequahic Golf Course reopens Thursday, July 31st. Be a part of the next chapter in Garden State golf.
Kind of springballing on that, you mentioned like losing a hole there, and I think that's something that became really popular. Like you go back to the U.S. Open, I think it was the U.S. Open at Shinnecock, right? That was the big thing that they lost the greens, right?
Yep.
When you're putting greens in or pins in spot, is that something that comes to your mind? Like, oh, this spot is really good, but if it gets too fast, we're going to lose it. Is that something you're cautious of, or do you just say, we'll cross that bridge when we get there?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of both. I mean I'll admit that we've messed up before too, so it's certainly something you learn. Whether it's I mean there are multiple couple of times that we've had to basically say we're going to skip this hole and everyone gets a par because we just can't do it. And that's fine. You hope that you catch it before certainly before that happens. I mean a good example at Plainfield in the Open last year, the club 16th hole, the par 5 with the top shelf. We even the club maintaining that green differently from the others, and not rolling it every morning. We looked at that upper shelf every single day and thought about it, didn't go for it. Next day, looked at it, rolled putts, thought about it, didn't go for it. So we ended up not using the top shelf at all for the whole, for the Open for the 3 days. And we did look at it every day, and just knowing how severe it can be. Again, if it was a match play event, we probably would have used it just because, you make, whatever, you can't get the ball up there and you make a double, you just lose the hole and you move on, as opposed to, you're coming down the stretch to the final day of the State Open and you get somebody that makes a 7, up there on a reachable par 5, and it's, just takes away from the story of the event. So, so it's something we certainly are looking at. And again, hopefully we don't mess too many up, but we've gotten a few wrong before.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen because that ends up being the talk of the town.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But, so when it comes to like securing locations for these championships, and not so much qualifiers in a sense, but like, what's it like in terms of like the process for someone like you? How far in advance are you looking at, like 2026, 2027, 2028? Because I know for a lot of competitive golfers, it's always curious to see, what kind of lies ahead. What does that schedule look like for you when you start planning it out? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Like, how far in advance are you doing this?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the AM and the Open, is scheduled out more than the AM, but the AM and the Open are really the two that are scheduled the farthest out. Those usually stay sort of 3, 4, maybe 5 years. And then, mid-am, 4-ball, women's am are more of a sort of 2-year type thing. We do try to sort of pair up, if you if you want to host the Open, we're gonna try to have you host a 4-ball or a mid-am, in the few years leading in, type of a thing, which seems to work well. I mean, I won't lie, the scheduling is probably one of the most difficult aspects of the job.
But Brad, that's so funny because the scheduler for our podcast loves it. He thinks it's so easy. He just
yeah, it's tricky because you get, some clubs, you'll get a board that really wants to host something, and then you have a great event there, and you say, look forward to coming back, and then you reach out a couple years later, and they say, oh yeah, our board really isn't interested in anything right now, and then you go for an event, and they say, oh, we'd love to get a big event back here, and you're like, wait, like 2 years ago you said you want to cut back, and now you're telling me you want to spend, like, it's that certainly can change. There's a little bit of politics involved, and some clubs you're dealing with boards, some clubs you're dealing with owners. Obviously public courses are a little bit easier because they can just block a tee sheet and host, but it's a difficult thing, but it's also something that I sort of I take pretty seriously in my role. Is look, if you look at some of the past history of our championships, I don't know who was scheduling events 50, 60 years ago, but like some of the big events, you look at sort of a stretch of 7, 8, 10 years, and it's like, wow, they got to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You check off the clubs that they visited over that stretch, and you're like, that's unbelievable. And then, so certainly it would be nice to, whoever's in my role 50 years from now, looking back at the sort of, the 2020s and thinking about, look at the venues they were able to secure. And so it is important, certainly important to me. And, there are, like I said, there's certain clubs that sort of know that, don't know, but sort of get the sense that, listen, this is part of our responsibility as a club, is to be part of history in golf of New Jersey. And whether that's, hosting USGA event or hosting, a state open or a state amateur or whatever it is, it's just sort of that, you get that certain mentality of, this is our responsibility as a club, as a member club of NJ Golf, and giving back to its members and our members. And yeah, we want to always make sure our members have a place to play, which I totally understand, but they also want to say, we need to show this place off and let everyone know how good it is, and get the best players in the state or the region to come in and play some rounds of golf here. So it's sort of a balancing act, again, between, working with golf professionals and section pros, and working with general managers and golf chairs and greens chairs and all that kind of stuff. It certainly helps, to occasionally tie in somebody who's a member, who's either on the board, who plays in our stuff. That's certainly a good way to approach it as well. Just to be able to kind of talk things up and get the ball rolling that way. So, it's certainly, qualifiers, a lot of our one-day events, that's once October rolls around is when sort of I start to really send out a lot of requests for the following year. But those multi-day majors are, we're trying to book them out, again, sort of 3 to 5 year type booking, and knowing that, if we book out something 5 years from now, the club, might pass a major, whatever, irrigation project might go through that they got the money for, and they tell us, hey, we need to shift and we need to move to a different year because, we're not going to be ready. And that's fine. We make that work. And, we don't, we're not like necessarily, I'm sure, the tour, probably you have to sign a written contract with legal document that's, a binding type contract. We don't do that. It's we put you on the future calendar, and if we need to move, we'll move. But, if not, we're going to be there. So.
You mentioned the majors just there, and I need your official your official statement here. Mike has claimed that New Jersey has 4 majors, and it's kind of what we've rolled with there: the Open, the Am, the Mid-Am, and the 4-ball. Are those the 4 majors for New Jersey golf?
Well, the women's Am, obviously, you'd throw in there, and then we've started the Women's Open, which is starting to build some momentum. Yeah, I guess in terms of men's majors, you'd be talking about the 4-ball mid-am open. The pub links is, I would say, sort of a secondary. I don't necessarily think it's as big as the others.
So that's like the Players Championship.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could say that. It's funny though too, because the 4-ball is sort of its own, its own thing, where I'm sure there's a lot of really good players that won multiple state events that probably never played in the 4-ball. So they didn't even give themselves the chance to win that. It used to be years ago when I first started here, you and your partner had to be from the same club. So
wow.
if you guys are 2+ handicaps and your buddies and you play at 2 different clubs, couldn't play together. So so that was, like if you look at the history of the event, it was actually the champions were listed as like North Jersey Country Club and then the 2 players that won it. And so it used to be a very different setup where you might have been the best player at your club and you had nobody you wanted to play with, so you just never played in the 4-ball because you couldn't. And then we made that change when the USJ announced the rollout of the US 4-ball, because we wanted, 2 guys who are going to try to qualify for the US 4-ball to be able to play in our 4-ball together. And that's, we had a few years in a row where the entries were not that great, and now it's, it's one of the more popular. We've sort of since COVID, we've basically almost set a record of number of entries almost every single year since then. Just become so popular. So yeah, you could say really the AM and the open are the 2 big ones, and then mid-am and then 4-ball we still consider them our majors, our men's majors again.
Yeah, Mike loves the 4-ball. Obviously he has I would say mildly successful podcast. We have careers, he's got family, and he chooses that one to play in because he either because he likes it the most or because he can, he's got a horse that he can keep riding. But
it was funny too. I got to help this year with the US 4-ball at Plainfield and Echo Lake, and again, I've worked USAM, women's am, junior girls, mid-am, men's mid-am. I've worked a bunch of other events, and the 4-ball just has like a different vibe, a different feel to it, because it's 2 buddies hanging out, that they're playing a practice round, they're coming in, sitting at the bar at Echo Lake, having a couple of beers afterwards. Like, if you go to the US Amateur, you've got your swing coach and your TrackMan on the range, and you got all this stuff, your nutritionist comes with you, and the 4-ball is kind of like just some buddies out getting to play a few rounds of golf at a good spot. So it has like a very different feel to it, where like, yeah, it's a big event and it's an important event and it's a major event for us, but like that aspect of, you and a buddy coming out to play is just kind of a unique thing. And we're one of the few state associations that run a stroke play to match play 4-ball. I know like, Mass Golf runs a 36-hole stroke play. They use 2 courses. It sells out in like 45 minutes, and that's what they do. And there's a bunch of other states that do 36-hole type 4-ball events, but we're one of the. I don't really know of many others that actually go into sort of that 4-ball match play bracket, and have been doing it that way for for close to 100 years now, 93 years or whatever it is. So yeah, it's become. We also used to do it in. We did a big calendar shift, I think maybe back in 2017, something like that. But and it used to be in August. So the 4-ball qualifiers used to be late July, and we're walking only, and we're just miserable days on the golf course because it was 100 degrees 4-ball, which is slow, and then you'd go to. I remember North Jersey hosted the 4-ball a number of years ago, and it had to be 100 degrees the last day, and we made guys walk North Jersey twice, playing 4-ball match play, and it's just miserable. So moved it to the spring. I think it's great because the qualifiers, the courses in the spring in New Jersey are not always in perfect shape, but again, it's 4-ball, so you've got a partner. So you're hoping that one of you can scratch out a par. Even if your games aren't totally sharp, or course conditions aren't 100% yet, but I think it really fits well as sort of the kickoff to the season. Partner event coming out of winter, and and then sort of roll into the individual championships after that.
It definitely is a nice little like walk up into the
Yeah.
championships. That it's our first one, but like you said, the partnership of it has, a nice little. Hey, my game's not the sharpest coming out of winter because we all know that it's tough to do in the winter here, and not the sharpest. But between my partner and I should be able to scrap something together.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Not my partner, but between Mike.
Right.
The New Jersey Golf Foundation, the charitable arm of the New Jersey PGA section, is proud to introduce the Heroes Tour coming in April 2025. The Heroes Tour will offer competitive golf opportunities at golf courses across the state for military veterans, active duty military personnel, and first responders, including law enforcement, EMTS, and fighter fighters. Proceeds from the Heroes Tour will support the continued growth of military programs offered by the New Jersey Golf Foundation, led by PGA Hope, helping our patriots everywhere. PGA Hope is a weekly rehabilitative golf program for veterans that is saving the lives of America's heroes in New Jersey and nationwide. Today, the program is offered in 15 counties across the state while positively impacting nearly 500 veterans annually. To support or learn more about the Heroes Tour, please visit njgolffoundation.org or call 732-465-1212. That's njgolffoundation.org or 732-465-1212. So, Brad, as you look back at the 2025 schedule and you look at all these, amazing sites that you hosted the championships at, for all of them, for both the four men's majors along with the women's majors as well. Has there been one moment at one of these tournaments where, somebody did something or someone won that came out of nowhere, or one little like moment that was like, wow, that was kind of like an incredible shot or a credible moment that just kind of like maybe stands out more so than the others?
Yeah, Essex County for the amateur was pretty impressive. I think looking back on Barnes, the way he played that final day, because I think he made like double bogey on his last hole of his second round, and then he came out and played 36 holes, I think, with only one bogey and 8 birdies or something like that. So that was like, to sort of come, and I think the first 2 days he doubled 18, and then finally sort of figured out how to play the hole and wrapped it up. But then, Troy being Troy, as soon as he hit that shot into the back of the 18th green, he was walking up there, and I said to one of the other guys in the staff, I was like, he's gonna make that putt. I know he is. And then to be standing there and watch him drill that whatever it was, almost 30 footer, give out a big fist pump right in front of everybody to force the playoff. Like I knew that he was going to kind of rise to that moment because just the sort of the path that he's been on recently, the last year and a half or so, just with how many great finishes he's had. So yeah, I think that one was really good. Again, Barnes just played unbelievable that last day to go around that place with almost flawless was really impressive. So I think that probably stands out for me.
Yeah, he made 2 bogeys if you count the 3 playoff holes that he played additional. And
Well,
he made
right,
2
yeah,
he made 2 bogeys in 39 holes is unbelievable
it's
golf.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah, sick.
Yeah.
And then obviously I was always curious about that because I know there's so many things that you see while you're out there. But now as you kind of like pan ahead to 2026, and I'm not here to, burst the bubble or do an unveiling or all that type of stuff. But what does the schedule look like for 2026? Is it finalized? When do you typically release that? Talk about what you can leading into 2026.
Yeah, I'll certainly, I'll leave a couple surprises for everybody, but and like I said, we are able to shift and make changes, and if something comes up, we figure it out and move schedules around. But certainly, sort of the big one for us for next year and is the 125th playing of the New Jersey Amateur, and headed to Valdes for that. They hosted, last time they hosted was 2012, Ryan McCormick actually won. That was the year that I was the intern. So it was funny. I usually tell people that radio, because Baltusrol is such a big piece of property where you stretch from the clubhouse all the way to the far end. So I was an intern that summer and basically spent 3 days at the halfway house on the upper and the halfway house on the lower, because radio transmissions from one end of the golf course didn't get all the way back to the clubhouse. So we used to do walking scores with the last few groups, and they would call in hole by hole scores. So the players would play like 6 holes out, and then you couldn't hear at the clubhouse anymore. So they'd radio to me for the middle of the round, and then radio back. So I didn't really get to see much of the golf course except for hanging out in the halfway houses for 2 days, which was fun. But yeah, I mean, Ryan McCormick, I still remember that last day watching him make eagle. He drove the green on 9 upper, made the putt for an eagle in his third round. Had about a 30-minute lunch break at the clubhouse, and then went out on the first hole of the lower and made an eagle to start his fourth round. So he finished his third round with an eagle, started his fourth round with an eagle, and then ended up cruising to victory from there.
As one does,
Yeah,
back-to-back eagles.
Yeah. So we're certainly grateful to be back there, especially with both courses now being renovated. I've been on the lower a couple times, haven't seen the full renovation yet on the upper, but hopefully get out there at some point this fall and get a chance to see it. So that'll be a really good one. They actually have, and Kevin and I were doing some research over the winter. There's been multiple New Jersey amateur trophies over the years, and we think we got to double check some more of the records, but we're pretty sure that the trophy that was in play before the current trophy was retired to Baltusrol in 1926, I believe. So we're basically coming 100 years back from when the trophy was retired there to the club, and it's still sitting in the trophy case at the club, because they used to, and I don't know why they decided to do this, but they used to, if three people from the same club won the amateur championship, the trophy was retired there. So I think in the first 25 years of the championship, they went through 4 trophies. So it doesn't really seem like a good idea when you start, when you think about how many good players from certain clubs are around, you're going to go through a new trophy every 5 years. But so they stopped doing that. But again, I believe it was 1926 when sort of that last trophy was retired. So for us to be back in the 125th playing, going back to Baltusrol, still working through some of the final details. We did use both golf courses when we were there in 2012. That again is the hope, still working through that with the club. But yeah, that'll be certainly a special one. And then State Open's going to Morris County next year. They hosted the Mid-Am obviously this year, so guys, some of those Mid-Am players have a good sense of it. Great, really cool for me because Craig Smith and I played high school golf together and we're buddies, and so it's easy for us to kind of jump on a phone call and sort of joke about the old days and talk about what's coming next year and all that kind of stuff. So I know the club is really excited. They did great renovation work there on a couple of the holes that 17th green, 6th green that needed to be sort of softened a little bit to fit with the modern game. In the new 17th green is amazing. I mean, there used to be basically one little spot that you could put the hole locations, and now there's sort of 4 quadrants. So so that'll be great. So those 2 are kind of the big 2 ones coming up next year. I'm sure we're going to need a lot of amateur qualifiers next season, I'm sure, coming to Baltusrol. But yeah, it'll be a busy June running all that stuff, getting those in. So,
well, if you're looking to open up more spots, right, I'm willing to, my handicap's not where your rules are now, but I'm willing, if you want to give me a sponsor's exemption, I'm willing to, throw my hat in the ring.
All right. Yeah. I mean, entries won't close till late May next year. So you got some time to really hone it down and
dial it in.
Yeah. To get it worked in.
Brad, when it comes to while we were talking before, something kind of sparked my memory. You mentioned or my mind. You mentioned the pub links. So I wanted to see where it has been in the history of kind of the pub links. And as you just give a quick scroll, there seems to be a pattern of the kind of the same courses, and I know it's public golf, so you do have an upper tier, and then you kind of have some other ones. So how hard is it in getting next year's publics and the year after that, like the forethought of putting it almost kind of on this rotation of like, we got Galloping Hill this year, we got we didn't say which one we have next year, maybe we don't have one yet, but what's the thought process there? Because again, we are Mike and I started this podcast because we do think there's a lot of great golf here in New Jersey, and the public golf especially, but there is at some point a fall off, right? Where you have, maybe 10, 12 courses that could host a championship, but then after that, it's kind of losing its luster. How do you transverse that?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't have the list in front of me, but I feel like it's a lot of times we're visiting county facilities instead of sort of the more one-off single owner type. And I think part of that is just it might be a little easier because you've got a county that has 5 golf courses, and if they need to close one for 3/4 of a day, it's easier for them to say, well, we lost a little bit of money that day, but it's okay because we still, we're able to get as many rounds in at our other facilities. That can be a little bit of it. And to be honest, a lot of the county courses have a county rate. That's what we kind of get charged for when we go to an event. So, that county rate is typically going to be a little bit less than when you go to some of the higher end public facilities that charge more. So, again, we're not looking at it of trying to, break even on the event or whatever it is, but it can be easier, again, if they'd be losing a little bit less money as a facility if they're giving it up for the day than, if you are constantly going to sort of the higher end ticket type places. So,
right.
And it's, we had a great, several years ago at this point, but when we went up to Balliol, we had a great championship up there. We're looking to try to get something down, near Atlantic City area soon too. A little bit of it also is just the planning of the event because it's a 36 hole day, and we try to somewhat keep it centrally located so that if somebody's got a 7:30 tee time and they live 2 hours away, it's not the easiest thing to get to just in a day trip. So, when you go to those extremes of north and south, you kind of, a lot of the players are having to travel more and maybe staying overnight, and which again is okay, and they're willing to do it for a really good venue. So, yeah, it's just trying to get that balance of, not going too far away for a lot of people. And then mixing in sort of county and not county type courses.
I've gotten that text before saying about like, man, I can't play in this tournament this year because of how far it is away. It's too far, and I've gotten people ask me, is there good spots to stay at down there? So especially when I went down to Union League National, and I was like, you got to go play. Like it's a special spot. Like, they're like, I can't go. It's too far of a ride. But things along those. So I understand where you're coming from with that.
Do you guys line up hotels? Like, is there kind of like, hey, playing this event, we've booked this hotel is going to give you kind of like a wedding. You give you like a block of rooms kind of thing.
Yep. Yes. So we did do that for the Mid-Am at Union League just because it was so far down. But even that, like the hotel was still 20 minutes north near Atlantic City. It's not like because Union League is very far south.
Yeah.
We used to do it a little bit, and I think the majority of the room block ended up being either staff or volunteers, like our rules officials and stuff, and there weren't that many players that were taking advantage of it. So we just kind of,
decided not to.
We just stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. We joking sort of as a staff that, we're lucky that basically almost every championship we run is within an hour and a half of home for everybody. So it's like, it means a lot of miles on the car because you're going, coming for a multi-day event. But, it's a little different than, the Texas Golf Association who, our next event is 9 hours that way. And
you're hopping on a plane.
Yeah. Or, you're packing up the 2 trailers and the van full of interns and you're driving someplace, staying there for 4 nights. And then, now you're going this way for something else. So, if you those big states, at times it might be nice to be in one spot and be at a venue. I mean, like I always think about how, like the month of July, we have the women's AM, the Open 3 weeks in a row. So it's very busy, but like to me, that's easier than the month of June where we have, 3 events each week at 3 different golf courses that all need to be visited the week before or a couple days before to do course setup. So there's a lot more like, driving all over the place for the month of June because you're, and splitting up as a staff. Once we get to the AM, we're all in one spot for one day. We can go out on the golf course, between waves, whatever, end of the day, go check a few things and be done and come back the next day versus like, okay, where are you going Monday and Tuesday and you're going here and you're doing setup and you're doing that. And it's like a little more crazy when you've got all that going on. But so to back to your question, to answer it, we used to do it and just seemed like not that many people took advantage of it. So, I mean, the mid-am at Union League, we did set one up. It was a discounted rate. And I think we had maybe 2 players and a caddy actually use the room block. And the rest was a dozen or 15 rooms for our volunteers and staff. So,
gotcha.
I think it's, again, because a lot of guys do come and go depending on when their tee time is. They're, they go down for the morning and they leave and they come back the next day or whatever it is. We get a number of guys that request sort of like certainly with like the AM and the Open, they'll request an afternoon day 1, morning day 2, so that they know they're just going to stay over that night and not have to make the round trip. But yeah, we don't.
Right. When everyone is requesting that, it's tough to accommodate everybody.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And again, if you're going to the Texas Amateur, there's probably a dinner the night before the event that everyone attends and they all stay in the hotel. And, there's that aspect of it because everyone lives so far away. We're here. It's like, if it's less than an hour and a half, most guys are just driving back and forth each day,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, a place like Seaview came to mind for me when you were mentioning that, like a golf course that you could have, something on while also having a hotel on property is kind of a.
Yeah. And we're, I mean, Seaview would be really cool for, pub links because especially if you could use both golf courses, you send everyone on one course in the morning, one course in the afternoon, they can still keep public tee times on each site. And I mean, that'd be a good one to certainly get to at some point. So maybe we'll reach out and tell them you want us to come down.
I think that would be, yeah. I don't know how the management would be, but I think the staff would welcome that.
Yeah. I mean, the facilities there are great. I mean, the Bay course is so much fun. I've actually never played the Pines course. I've been on it before, but I've never really played it. But Bay course is a lot of fun and, not super long, but just a really good little layout.
That was my worry when I was thinking about it, was that it's not long enough for the pub links. I think it tops out at like, I want to say 65 or 66 or something like that. It might even be less, but yeah, that was my only reservation, is that you can't pump it to like 69 or 7,000 yards.
Yeah, but that's all right. I mean, the state open is going to be at Morris County next year. It's only like 6,400, 64 and change, but par 70, so
70, right.
Yeah. Which, but again, that would be a nice way to, because the Pines course you can stretch. So if you use both of them, you could kind of have one long and one short. And, the course is still has enough difficulty that even at a shorter yardage, it's not like it would,
Oh, it's plenty difficult, as I've found out multiple times.
Yeah, for sure.
So Brad, I got one final question here on my end, and I think it's kind of more like a dream for someone that sits in your seat. But like, if you could run one event at any spot in New Jersey, I'm going to exclude Pine Valley because I feel like that would be it. Is there a spot that you haven't gotten a championship to that you would like to get one to?
Yeah, there's a few. So I don't know if I could really pick one out. There's a few. I don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, that's fine.
I mean, them on notice.
There's I mean, certainly clubs that we necessarily haven't been to since I've been here, but That doesn't mean we haven't been there, somewhat recently. So, yeah, there's a few that I'd love to run an event at.
We'll hit stop in a little bit. We'll
Yeah.
talk more.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
No.
I think that's the best way I can answer that question.
Fair.
Fair enough. Brad, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you jumping on. Like I started with, it's been, feel like I know I know you and Mike talk quite a bit, but I appreciate you jumping on. It's nice to have a conversation and kind of hear some of the ins and outs of tournament golf here, because it's not something I get to experience all the time. So this has been really awesome. Thank you for jumping on, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, get working on the game, and Baltusrol's right around the corner. You'll be there.
There we go.
You can start with the 4-ball, and then work your way into the events. It'll be good.
Sounds good. Take care, Brad. Thank you.
Yeah, great to meet you. Thanks.